you. I think I said 5 minutes, and we spent a little bit more than 5 minutes. But thank you so much for joining this call. Um, it's really great to have you guys here. Welcome, Elisha. Elisha, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, amazing, amazing. So, thank you everyone for joining today's call. Today we are going to be looking at um policies and gates, right? I'm sure a lot of you have heard about policies and gates. I'm sure most of you that build Laravel applications, you need to find a way to ensure there is some form of authorization to in your application. You're trying to ensure that people who are unauthorized don't access certain or have certain privileges to do certain things. And people usually default these kind of things to um having middlewares as well. Some people don't even know the difference between a policy and a middleware. I don't believe anybody's called, has that mindset. But then at the same time, we hardly find a lot of people using gates or policies. And sometimes it's because they don't even have an idea of what it is or when to use them as well. And today, we are going to be covering that through Mr. Elisha Okong, where he's going to show us what policies are, what gates are, how we can use them, when to use them, and where to use them in our application. Thank you so much for joining tonight's session, and I really do hope um, you pick up one or two from this session. Thank you so much. Elisha Opong, over to you.
Yes, over to me. Give me 1 minute. Okay, all right, okay. It's amazing to confirm you guys can hear me. Uh, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. We're just going to look over undefined method. Okay. Yes, we're going to look over policies and gates. Sorry, I've been trying to work on the demo side of things for the talk, and it's just been giving me headache. But we're going to go ahead regardless and just figure it out along the line in real time. I'll share my screen so that we could see the talk and then walk ourselves through it. Slideshow, share my screen, window. Okay, as soon as you can see my screen, could you let me know?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yes,
Okay.
we can see the screen.
Okay, thank you. So today we're going to talk about authorization and authentication. We look at the case study of the policies and gates. We'll talk about it a bit, and then we'll move into the practical side of things. I'm hoping I can walk myself through the codes, but whatever it is, we'll double through it together and get our hands dirty along the line. So authorization done right, mastering gates and policies in Laravel. The concept goes beyond Laravel. It can be applied to your vanilla PHP projects. It can be applied to Symfony. It can be applied to Slim, Skeleton, and any other project. It's mostly around understanding the concept itself and then running along with it. Okay, I'm sure everybody knows me already, so I don't need to get into my slide. The question is, I am logged in I can do anything and I can take any actions. And then can you really? So for most of the time, when I started out software development, the concept of authorization was very, very far from me. That was a huge mistake that I realized over time. We just focused on starting out due to lack of proper knowledge, maybe guidance. We start out with ensuring the user is authenticated, and then as soon as they're authenticated, we just, flow along the line like that. I mean, if you're authenticated, you can create posts, you can take your actions. That we never look into the security side of things, where we're like, okay, can user A have access to user B's data? If user A has an ID of, let's say, a post ID of 12, if they type in maybe 13 into the URL and it's not their post, should they be able to see that data? Should they be able to edit that data? Should they be able to, delete that data? That's where authorization comes in. So it's two-sided: authentication on one side, authorization on the other side. Authentication is you should have access to the platform. Authorization is to what extent, should you have this access. So it brings us into authentication vs authorization. Authentication versus authorization. Now, authentication just basically declares who you are. You're logged in, and you're just floating around in the application. Before you had access, we asked you what is your username, or what is your email, or what is your phone number. You gave it to us. It's okay. What password? You give it to us. I'm like, okay, we know this person. This is who you are, Daniel Mabadeje. Okay, we have your details. Here you go, have access to the application. Or we say, okay, Edima, right, beautiful. Here, have access to the application. Or Elisha, here, have access to the application. Now, after you've gotten access to the application, you can start looking around. For example, Facebook, you can create a post telling us how you're feeling. You can edit your post at a later time. You can delete it. But then for other people's posts, you can take such actions. You cannot create a post for someone. You can only take actions that are allowed, based on the authorization level. So when you hear authentication, it's just first level access. First level access. If we bring the analogy back to real life, you go to someone's house, you knock at the door, and then that is authentication. Like, hey, I'm at the door. I'm coming. We're getting there. We're getting there. So it's like, hey, I'm at the door, and then I come out. Look, who's that? Hi, my name is Daniel. Oh, okay, I know Daniel. Coming. Then Daniel steps into the house. He has access to the parlor. He has access to the dining room, etc. So he sits down. And then there are doors that lead to other places where he goes and knocks, and then like, who is that again? Like, Daniel, no, you can't come into this. You can't come into this room. You can only stay in the parlor, or you can get into the visitors' room, etc., etc. That's where we start getting into the authorization thing. So authentication just gives you access, but authorization decides what you can do with that access. So that is basically what we've been talking about. Authorization. You're poking around the application, you're looking for what to destroy, you're looking for what to create, you're looking for what to update. So authorization is basically around what are you allowed to do? What am I allowed to do? So when you are building out your application, you should look at authentication as general access into your application. And then you look at authorization as access to what action. What should this person do? We can break down this access into role-based. A lot of times, if you read a lot of product requirement, you would see something called RBAC, implement RBAC, that's role-based access control. It can get really, really granular, which is the problem that the SPATI roles and permissions package solve. We're getting there. Just follow me. All right. So now, why does this matter? Why does authentication matter? Why does authorization matter? It is mainly for security purposes. People shouldn't see what they shouldn't see. If they start seeing what they shouldn't see, it becomes a problem. And I have a real life example. Way back start of my career, I was trying out things by myself, just dabbling. Then I didn't even know how to properly implement role-based access control. I don't even know what is authorization, stuff like that. So I deployed an application, and locally I was trying to test. Locally, I was trying to test something, and see switches. So I had this there's this command that Laravel has what sorry has a login using ID, something like that. So I had that in, and then I pushed it up to where I was testing things, and all users just flipped. Everybody was assessing everything. I fixed it, and after I changed that back, it started making me look into how to granularize access. I mean, even though I had RBAC set up, the fact that I had odds user locked in would have still given overriding of that, should have overridden everything, because everybody was just locked in using the same ID. But then that particular event made me start researching on how to break down access. When I was done with fixing that, I logged in with a different user, and I tried to access a different user's data, and boom, it was there. I could do everything as user B while logged in as user A. And that is a huge security breach. In certain cases where it is a high security environment, people can take actions on behalf of people and then implicate other people. So while you're building your application, you should be able to properly reflect real life situations. A line manager should not be able to do what, I don't know. Okay, let's assume there's a line manager and there is a line overseer, the overall manager that approves a lot of things. So because you're building an application to digitalize the workflow, the subordinates shouldn't be able to take actions for the superior. That is where the security comes in. Because when you do, they start being problem. Like, I'm not the one that did it all. We can't really audit things. I'm trying to give you basis on why authentication and authorization is really, really important. When you understand the importance, the implementation start making sense, and you can adapt it into your specific use case. Maintainability too. If you want to track who did what, who did why, or things like that, just tracing the audit log, audit trail, it's easy. Also important, especially in those building financial applications. This authentication and authorization mostly is really, really important. I'm coming, Dave. Then also team collaborations. We have some applications where there are a lot of team members that can take a lot of different actions. We could have like an accountant, we could have an admin user, we could have HR, we could have team member. Now all of them can look at the same data and see different things because their roles have given them access. I could look at a particular user as an HR and I see their date of birth, certificate of origin, all those details. Now, someone else from maybe legal and compliance, I'm just saying, for example, can look at the same page, but because of the role they have, we obfuscate certain informations from them. That's security. All right, moving on so we could get into all the questions that Dave is asking. Gates and policies. It strolls in gently. Now, gates and policies are ways that we implement authorizations. Gates and policies are patterns with which we implement authorization. We've been able to explain the concept of authentication. We've been able to explain the concept of authorization. Now we're looking at how do we implement authorizations. We already, I hope everybody's familiar with how to implement authentication. The auth system where you could request a combination of username and password, phone number and password, email and password. Basically, any two identifiers that helps you retrieve user records. You could also use single sign-ons, Apple sign-in, Google sign-in, various means of sign-ins. Laravel Socialite gives you easy access to plug most of these things in and it goes. So gates and policies. What is gate and what is policies? Gate is a closure-based authorization check. Gate is a closure-based authorization check. I hope you know what a closure is. You know what a closure is? A closure is an anonymous function that has states, that has access to states. If I remember correctly, someone can just maybe Google it and put the definition in the chat box for everybody. So closure-based authorization checks is gates. And then policies are class-based authorization checks. Both of them do the same thing, but differently. They have where you use them and where you use one and where you use the other. Okay, difference. Now, the difference between gates and policies. A lot of people get confused here. Me, I always, it cracks my head most time. Where do I use gates? Where do I use policies? Or interchangeably? You mix it up. Are they even the same thing? Do they mean the same thing? So I'm going to tell you, yes, gates and policies do the exact same thing, but on a how level, on a how level. So when we're looking at gates, we're just generally saying, can a user do something? Then remember we said it is closure based, so it does not tie to any model in the application. But then when we're looking at policies, policies tie to a particular model. For example, you have a post. If you want to implement authorization for post model, you're going to have a post policy. Now, this policy is going to map to create, update, read, delete. And it can also have more custom rules or policies that relate specifically to that model, specifically to that resource. But then when you're looking at gates, it's still authorization, but it does not directly tie to a particular model. Please, if you understand, just drop an emoji or something so I know if I can take it back a bit. We're going to have the practical sessions and then look at how the things differ. Okay, we understand. I'll take it again. When you're implementing gates and policies point to authorization. Both of them are ways that you authorize actions on your application. But for gates, you authorize actions that are not related to a model. Actions that are not related to a model. Example, dashboard access. When you're opening a dashboard does not really relate to any particular model. It might have numerous models that are fixing. So in such cases, you don't use a policy. You define a gate for dashboard access, because it's just an action. If we now say something like maybe, I don't know what examples to use from dashboard access, as when we get to the practicals and I think of more things, we'll probably get into it. Then for policies, you have a post model, you have a comment model, you have a wallet model, you have a transaction model, you have a media model. And then you say, should this person access this media document? Were they the one that uploaded it? All that authorization checks comes into policies, because policies tie directly to a model. I hope everybody understands. Then we go for the practicals. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm really hoping that the project that I tried to spin up works well, so all of us will just follow. I'll stop sharing my screen and then bring up the project. Okay, project. I need to share my entire screen. Okay, please let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, okay, beautiful. Um, let me see. Is the text legible? Can everybody see the text? Can
Yes, we
everybody
can see
see
the
the
text.
text? Okay, okay, beautiful. All right. So what did I do here? I just vibe coded this entire application to see if I could use it to push the information across. Is that a text? I can't see it. Um, okay. So what we're doing here is we're looking at two models, posts and comments. So a post, you can create a post, you can view a post, you can see the comment on the post. These are public routes or posts, particular posts, the comment for a particular post. And there are routes that are uh, covered by authentication, which is creating posts, editing posts, update is to point to the same thing. Yeah, editing post and deleting a post. Then we also have restore false. We don't need these ones. Then we have where we bring out the comment, create the comment, get comments, basically CRUD operations, on posts and comments. All right, so let's get into it. When we're creating a policy, it shows up in here. We have a policies folder in the app folder. How do you create policies? PHP artisan make policy, then you give the policy name. Let me type this. PHP artisan make policy name. Then you could pass something like model and then give it model name. So it sets up all the methods for you. Yeah. Okay. So let's see how it is. So when we let's look into post policy first. You can see a few things. View any. What this does is this is always mostly true for some resources. For post, anybody can view any post. That's where we have view any here. So we have view. This is when you're viewing a particular post. So it first of all checks, is the post actually published? If it is published, oh yeah, now you can view it. But if it is not published, it checks here, are you the owner of the post? If you are not, that's why I said user ID, post user ID. If you're not the user, it returns a what's the keyword? Is it 419? No, I'm not sure. I've forgotten the code, but it returns a unauthorized code for you. If it's an API, you get your unauthorized payload. If it is a web project, you get the view, unauthorized action, something. So this is basically it. You are defining who has access to what. Who has access to what. Now, something I should also point out here is that you can define this inside your controller. A lot of people do most of these checks inside their controllers, but you shouldn't. You should move them into either a gate or a specific policy place so that you can be reused. With policies and gates, you can reuse them in many places rather than copying and pasting the whole logic. I hope you're following. Then there are also different things here. When you're creating a post, anybody can create a post, so true. Update a post, we check that you are actually the owner of the post. Delete, same thing. Restore, you can add as many other methods as you want. You can add a lot of things related to this particular resource, this particular model. So this is for post only. So everything you're going to add here, everything else has to be related posts. Don't add something related to a different model, because as you see here, these methods have access to the logged-in user taking the action and the resource. So it is closely mapped to the model. Now you can actually do something like this. Let me show you, though you shouldn't. You can do something like this and then change this to a different resource. It works, but you shouldn't do it. Okay. Then if we look at the comment policy, we'll see that for you to see a comment, the post must be published. If the post is not published, you can't view any comment on it. Or you are the one that created that post. This is mostly in cases where you publish a post, there are a lot of comments, and then you unpublish it, you set it back to drafts. You as the owner of the post should still be able to see the comment that were there, but other people can't see it. Then for you to view comments, the post must be published, just the same thing we did over there, or you are the one that created the post. For you to create a comment, the post must be published. For you to update, you must be the owner of the comment. Now, as you can see, for the update side, we are no more saying the owner of the post has access. So in this case, the owner of the post cannot update a comment that they did not make. Security. Then delete. So this one, the owner of the post of the comment can delete the comment, and the owner of the post can delete it. I hope we are following. It's just writing out business logic here. I'm showing us the policies, how we structure it. Please, if you're following, just give me a thumbs up. Let me be sure I'm not talking to myself. Thank you. All right, so this is where and how we define policies. Hold on. Okay. Stop sharing for now. Let me do this. Share screen. Okay, confirm you guys can still see my screen. Just maybe open your mic and then say you can still see.
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay, beautiful. Yeah, so this is how you define policies. Let's move to where you define gates. Gates are defined in your service provider, which is, for example, we have our app service provider here. So we define our gates inside. If your gates, no, gates, so if your gates starts becoming huge, you're defining a lot of things. I always advise that you create a separate service provider that holds just your gates related stuff. And you do that by PHP artisan, make provider, give it a name, and then it generates a service provider for you. For most of the time, it's going to auto register it. But if it doesn't, you come to Bootstrap and then providers file. For those on Laravel, I think from 11 and above, you come here and you just specify it here and you'll be good. Please remember to register service provider. Just check in case it doesn't, so you don't start wondering what happened that my policies are not working. Beautiful. So gates are where you define authorizations that are not tied to a particular model. As you can see, access admin dashboard is not assigned to any model exactly. So that is why you see we just check is user admin. You could also have, you could have something like, let's say, yeah, this is beautiful. You could have something like generate PDFs. User is PDF generator. You know, so for anywhere we have generating PDFs, maybe to export user list, to export transactions list, to export staff list, payroll list, anything. You just know that those things are not tied to a particular resource. You just check, can they generate PDFs? So those things like that are not really their actions, but they are not tied to a particular model, comes into the gates. As you can see, they do the same thing, but they just do them for different scenarios. They do them for different scenarios. Okay, I hope we understand where the difference is with gates and where the difference is with policies. Now, after you're done declaring, populating your policies, you have to register the policies, and that still happens in the app service provider, which is here. Yes. Now, like the note said, Laravel auto discovers policies, but I don't always depend on auto discoveries for things like this. I want to, by myself, add it so I know that it's working. Get something. I just want to be explicit about it. And if you look at here, it still uses the name gates. So on a lower level, all of them are gates. But we're just saying, if we want to write gates for a particular model, it's best we put it inside a class for cohesion and ease of use. I hope you're following so far. Now, how do we now use these definitions in our codes? We've defined the policies, we've registered the policies. Where do we now actually use these policies? For most of it, let me exit this thinker. For most of it, when you're creating a post, we always have this request here, but I don't always like using the default request so that I can move things like this into a form request. So in this case, in this particular case, we're using this needs to use authorized, I think. Is it this one? No. Okay, I'm trying to check. Okay, beautiful. I got it. It is authorizes request. Okay. So this gives us access to the authorized method here and a few other things. Keep it here so you can be accessed by all places. All right. So when you now say this authorized, this is an action. Let me cover this all through. This is an action index. We want to see all the posts. And then we are saying, are you authorized to see all posts? Now, we could remove this. This is good. There is no authorization here. Only, is there even authentication? No. If we look at our API, we open up posts, all posts, show, and comments. It's accessible by the public. So all of these are routes that are not generally accessible. So even we remove our authorization, no problem. But let's just keep it in case we want to close all users from viewing posts. We'll go to the endpoint here and say list all. Postman is very tiny. I tried to increase the font, but I don't know if that was good. Okay. So we see here user ID1, user ID2, title and body, publish start, etc. Who is the user that published it, ID2, name Alice. There are a lot of data that we have here working all right. So that just shows that for a public routes, we can access it. So if we pick, for example, one and then dig in, please, could you, one person just open their mic and confirm they can actually see, they can make sense of the Postman screen I'm sharing?
No, I don't think I can see the Postman screen. I see you are still on VS Code.
Still on PHP stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, let me fix that now. I have to go to window race. Okay. All right. Confirm you can see the you can see.
Yes, I can see the Postman screen.
Okay, Postman, beautiful. All right. So list all posts, like I was trying to say, brings us to showing all posts, everything. We have current page, first page, the normal Laravel stuff. It retrieves all data. all data to us. We can see every single thing. Now we can pick one and then dig into it. One, we use the ID here, and that is one, this ID two, blah blah blah. It's all okay. It all works because it's public facing. Everything is public facing. You can get the comments to all good, all good. Now we can list the comment on a particular post. It works, right? These are the public facing URLs. And if we look at them, if we look at the controller that handles all posts, if we look at the controller that handles all posts, I think I just have to share everything so that I can move freely. Did I miss any message? Okay, 401 unauthorized. Yes, you're right. Okay, so if we look at the controller that handles the index, we see that this is here. And if we dig into it, we'll see that it returns true. If we change this to false, meaning we are not authorizing anybody to view all posts, then let's see how that behaves. All right, you see, we now have a message. This action is unauthorized with a 403 forbidden status code. There is all of this. You can clean it up to not show all of this, but it's just default. I haven't edited how exceptions are returned. So it just shows you this action is unauthorized. That is authorization. We're not even locked in. We don't need to be locked in. So in cases like this, you see, view any matches what we have here, the ability. Then we can come here and change this back to true. And you see, everybody just gains back access. That's just the core of it. Ability to restrict certain things. That's it. Now, if we've been able to look at view. Let's close this one. We're done with it. Show. So this says this authorized view show. If we look at view, it says if the post is published, show it. But if the post is not published, don't show it. So let's open here and see. Check on one. It shows us one. All right. One. No. Good. It shows us one. We can see that published at is here. It was published. Now, if for some reason we update this published at to null, we won't be able to get access. We're still going to get the same thing, unauthorized. Now, let's close this one. We're done with that one. Now, post as Alice. Let's create an Alice post. I think I created one. Let me create this. Beautiful. So we've created Alice new post, creating the API, published at blah blah blah, user ID 2, and all of that. The ID here is 9. So if we go to view posts and then we pass in 9 here, we are going to see that post. Beautiful. It comes up here. Everybody sees it. The users can access it, etc., etc. But then let's create a draft post and see if it can also still be accessed. Unauthenticated. Okay. Let me put it here. Don't worry, it's okay. The token is not important. Okay, so create draft post, send you inherit return. Beautiful. So we get Alice's draft post. The ID is 10. If we go here and then I think we're going to see this. No, we won't see this. Okay, so we see this action is unauthorized because of how we defined our policies here. Is post published, that is only when you can view it, or when you are the user that actually made the post. But in this place, this is public route, so we're not passing any authorization here. But if I add the authorization here, beautiful, and then send, using the post authorization should work. How is it not? Hold on, we're debugging this together. To Alice. Okay. Let's see what is wrong. No. Okay. Okay. I understand what the problem is. I had to just do that. So why it's still returning false for us is because the post endpoint, this one, is not under the auth sanctum middleware, so it cannot pass in the post for us. So but if I shift it in here, we should be fine. Beautiful. Okay. Thank you for staying around. I'll debug that. So you now see that even though it's draft, we can still find it because we are the owner of the post. But I'm going to that almost let me return that back. Okay. So that is basically the concept of how we authorize and how we authenticate. In this case, let me do one more example, and then I'm going to provide the access to the code base and the Postman collection. So you could, at your spare time, it's really detailed. You could just go through all of them and try your hands around a lot of things. All right, so updating our own post. We've checked create post, we've done create draft post, and we've seen that only us can view our draft post. Then we could look at, can we update our own posts, our own? So body updated by Alice, blah, 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 etc. Put request. Then we send this. You see, we have been able to update it. And if we look at our post policy on the update side, you see that user ID must be equal to the post user ID. Then let's see if we can update some other person's own. We have Alice and we have Bob. So if we try, Bob has post 5. Let's go to list all posts so we could see post 5. All right, so we see here that the user is Bob and not Alice, but we're logged in as Alice. So if we go to Bob's post and try to update it, you see this action is unauthorized. We are not authorized to update someone else's record. Okay, it's the same thing with delete. So you just define what action based on that particular resource should who be able to take, and then you put it inside the policies, and that's it. That saves you a whole lot of security issues. There's no security breach, blah blah blah. And then I'm going to also point out one situation where you should also pay attention to, just as an addendum. So that's it. We could look into the comment side, etc., but we don't have so much time for it. So I'm going to make this endpoint available. I'm going to make the whole code base available for all of us. So at your spare time, you could just tap around and see how things go. Now, what you should also pay attention is if you're implementing authorizations, if you're implementing authorizations and then you have impersonation also implemented. For most of our applications, we have impersonation where we are impersonating a person to take certain actions. Please, when you're handling impersonations, you should find a way to dig down into either the exact, I don't know, but just pay attention to how you manage your authorizations when you bring in impersonations. For most of it, you might want to have some sort of audit trail. This person took the actions on behalf of that person. So it just makes sense. So did you understand what we just did? I'm hoping you did, but if you did not, you could just unmute yourself, ask questions. We talk about the codes before we move forward from there. Everybody followed, everybody understood. Okay, beautiful. Okay, now for all that we've done the past 30 plus 40 minutes, if you forget everything, don't forget that authorization is a design decision. You must think about it from when you're starting out, from the get-go. You must think about who takes what action, at what point, where. There are certain actions that a user can actually take them, but they should only take them after a prerequisite action, right? There are things like that. So policies are just where you define all these actions and how they get taken. It's really, really important. So gates maps to standalone actions that are not tied to resources. Policies map to authorizations and actions that are actually tied to resources, models, etc. Now, using gates and policies helps keep your controllers very, very thin, and your rules are centralized in one place. So you saw how we were able to say this authorized view, we pass in the post, and then we define all our codes for the authorization in one place. So throughout the code base, anywhere you want to do authorization logic for post creation, you don't need to start specifying them again. You just use the disauthorized view. And also, if you're using form requests, you have access to the same authorized thing. It's the same. You're not going to start defining things differently. Just thought to point that out. Okay, so I think this should be the end. Thank you. That was introduction to policies, gate, authentication, and authorization. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to jump on it. Or when you start looking into the code base and everything, and you have any questions, you just drop a message on the group, mention me, and I'll just get to it. Thank you, and thank you very much. Daniel over here.
All right. Thank you very much for that session. Thank you so much. I think the takeaway for people here would be, gates are not tied to a particular model, right? Policies are more tied to model than gates. So I think that's the one I took out for everyone. Then another thing was the last line that you just mentioned was authorization is a design decision and not an afterthought, which is very important. I think a lot of us just want to make things work first before we now think of, what's authorization decision or what other system design that we're supposed to put in place from the very beginning. So yes, that's what I took out of this as well. Thank you so much, Elisha, for this session tonight. We are really grateful for having this. I think we're also trying to see if we could continue this as soon as possible. And if there's any session that you would love us to cover at any point in time, please do well to let me know. And we would find a way to cover that for you. Or we'll look for the speaker, anyone who has more experience on that as well. And if you're also interested in speaking, in any of our sessions, if you feel like there's a particular topic that we can talk about, which would be necessary, please do well to also reach out to us as well. If you're not on our WhatsApp community, please do well to join our WhatsApp community. And we are also looking to launch other chapters as well, as you have seen in the announcements on the group. So if you are looking to open a chapter, PHP Talks chapter, you could also send me a DM or an email, and I'm happy to respond to that as well. Once again, thank you so much for joining today's session, and have a productive week ahead. Bye.